America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, liberty and justice for all, sir.
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
good, how are you?
Good. Peter?
Okay, everybody got a copy of the agenda?
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we support the agenda, or adopt the agenda.
Motion been made and supported that we approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Everybody got a copy of the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept them as printed.
Support.
Can you talk a little louder?
Motion been made and supported that we accept the minutes as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Everybody got a treasury report? Anything different
No,
necessarily?
it's all about the same.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Motion been made and supported to accept the treasury report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The bills?
And as usual, we have them all except for Frontier again, so.
Do you have Cassier and
Yep.
the one from Morris's?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there anything else?
No, that's the only one.
I will make a motion that we pay the bills as printed, plus include the Frontier bill that will come in later.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to pay the bills. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. We don't have anything on the agenda for old business. We're gonna start with new business, Rhonda.
Okay, well, as you know, we have a request from the fire department, Stanton Fire Department, to help pay for new respirators. So this is the quote that will be divided amongst the, townships.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I don't know if you wanna see it. Originally, the fire department come to us with, they needed $120,000. Well, Andy Ross from Evergreen sits on the fire department board too. And he found some, I don't know if it's a different brand, different company,
It's half the price.
yeah, for $60,000, which makes it $15,000 per township. So we don't have, it could be in our new budget, we don't have to pay for it until May, but
If they weren't approved here shortly, then the price is gonna go up 10%. So, but it'll go in the new budget, and we have the money, in the fire millage, so, but we'll pay for them when they come in. We just need an approval to do it first.
we need a motion.
So I make a motion to pay for his treasurer for this person.
I'll support.
Motion made and supported to, give the fire department $15,000 for new respirators. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tom give you some stuff about the fire meeting?
Yep, he did. He gave me all of his stuff. If you guys wanna just look through it, you can. I don't really wanna go through every item.
Pretty much just a financial statement of the
Yeah, pretty much.
fire department. That's all he had. He didn't have anything else. Okay, we took care of the respirators.
Right.
Okay, do you wanna start with these other ones where we gotta
Yeah.
make some ordinances?
Yep.
Do you wanna explain what?
So, over the years in the ordinance book, when there has been a violation of the broken down automobile ordinance, pretty much, one portion of the ordinance says that it's a civil violation, and another section calls it a misdemeanor. So tonight we have to vote on a bunch of stuff that's basically just gonna fix it so that it's gonna be what is it?
Also,
Municipal civil infraction.
Did Ron print you up some?
Yeah.
Okay,
So this first one is an ordinance to provide for the issuance of citations for municipal civil infractions and to provide the procedure therefore. So I will,
we need to vote on these all individually,
we need a roll call vote, yeah, for each one.
for each one,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
The first one, number 3, is an ordinance to provide authorization and procedures for the issuance of municipal civil infractions. Elba,
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Snyder,
Yes.
Laper,
yes,
motion carried.
Okay, so the next one is an ordinance to amend the anti-noise and public nuisance ordinance to provide municipal civil infraction penalties for the violation thereof. And again, it's pretty much the same thing, so.
Okay. Elba,
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Snyder,
Yes.
Laper,
yes,
motion carried.
Okay, so then there is an ordinance to amend ordinance 92-1, the Douglas Township inoperable vehicles ordinance to provide municipal civil infraction penalties for the violation thereof.
Okay, same thing. Elba,
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Snyder,
Yes.
Laper,
yeah,
motion carried.
Okay, so the next one is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 92-2, the Douglas Township refuse ordinance to provide municipal civil infraction penalties for the violation thereof.
Pat,
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Snyder,
Yes.
Laper,
yes,
motion carried.
Okay. This one is an ordinance to amend township ordinance number 2, adopted in 1974, electing to administer and enforce the state construction code to provide penalties for the violation thereof.
These are all the same thing, right? I'm just changing them to.
Pretty much based on where they're at in the ordinance books.
Okay. Pat,
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Snyder,
Yes.
Laper,
yes,
motion carried.
Alright, the next thing, Morse Lawn Care decided to change up how they do their, or I should say, when they do their, contracts. So, I just received this yesterday in an email, and they have to know before March. If you don't let them know before March, then you're not gonna get on their list for
this
the
is
year.
for 2022-23 snow plowing.
Yes.
Okay.
So, there was an increase, we were paying $450 a month, from November to March. But now, if we approve this, we'll be paying $540 per month from November to March. So it's a $90 a month increase.
4 months.
Yeah.
Basically, a little over $2,000.
2,700.
Okay.
And that is November 2022 to March of 2023.
Didn't you get quotes just recently on?
We did last fall, and, they were still cheaper than everybody else, and I'm sure that everybody's
Gonna raise them.
gonna raise them with the gas prices, but,
Well, and we've stuck with them too because they're local.
And they do a good job.
They do a good job. So,
I'll make a motion that we accept, Morris Lawn Care's estimate for next winter's, snow removal.
I'll second it.
okay, motion made and supported that we stick with, more snow removal. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
okay, then, I don't know if you wanna do this now or if you wanna wait till the budget, meeting, but I have a quote from Blaine Tech, to upgrade our video surveillance system. So, I'll just,
Okay.
We can just look at it and just, then we'll work on it when we put it
Okay.
in budget.
That would be all these cameras that there's some cameras scattered around here.
There's only one in this room and they're not efficient.
Yeah,
They're old.
it was a poor system when we put it in. But they could be worked into our next budget.
Right.
If you decide to. Okay,
Okay, we need to set dates for the budget meeting and hearing.
whatever works for you.
And we usually
do
go
that
the last 2 Thursdays.
in,
Wednesdays or Thursdays.
I don't care about that.
is
What
it
works?
in February or
March.
in March? Okay. We can do that,
There's probably gonna be a PC meeting that day,
okay.
so should we do Thursdays? Okay, so how about the 24th and the 31st?
Okay.
Vote on that or not?
Do we need to vote on the dates or?
Thank you.
Okay.
And the last thing I have is just, Amy Stedman from the library called and she wanted to know if we would rather she brought in her paperwork stuff or if she could just drop it off.
She does her annual report
Yeah.
that she usually gives, which is,
It doesn't matter, I mean, she wants to just drop it off, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. That's all I have.
You don't have anything else, Rhonda?
Nope.
You got anything, Amy?
taxes are due on the 14th, so I'll be here all day that day, and then again on the 28th, I have to be here by law that day, so
Okay,
I'll be here all day that day, so.
okay. Pat, do you have anything? Okay, I don't necessarily have anything. We're through our business, we could go to public comments now, if anybody's got anything. Laura?
Larry and I attended the January 26th planning commission meeting in Douglas. It was cold. We were both impressed with the way the newly organized commission got right down to business and accomplished its goal of reviewing and making changes in the drafted ordinance. We know the members face a rough road ahead, but hopefully the end result will be worth the blood and tears expended thus far. However, we are both disheartened by the method that some of those who oppose win in our township. The contempt for farmers and landowners was in plain view for all of us to see during the public comment period at the end of the business meeting. Those of us who work the land have been isolated as the 3% who are trying to make life miserable for the 97%. We are the money growers who have no consideration for the health, safety, and welfare of our neighbors. We have been painted with this ugly brush in spite of the fact that my husband's family has spent the last 100 years tilling ground in Douglas and Sidney townships and endeavoring to be good neighbors. Want to hunt, snowmobile, or just walk the property? Fine, no charge. Just don't disturb the crops or hurt others in the process. I am really reluctant to equate the current local climate with that of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Nothing could ever be that evil. One similarity, however, is too obvious to miss. Hitler and his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, kept slyly suggesting to the Germans that their Jewish neighbors, who had in actuality made major contributions to the culture and wealth of Germany, were evil money grubbers. Jews, they claimed, reveled in gouging their fellow citizens with high interest loans. Greedy money grubbers sound familiar? I do not wish to suggest that we landowners are slated to be loaded into railway boxcars and sent to the gas chambers. However, we have been tarred by insinuations that we too are money grubbers who seek to destroy the rural character of our own area. Grossly exaggerated or erroneous claims citing the negative effects of turbines are being circulated by a recently organized energy coalition. The group is seeking funding for propaganda activities that will only further isolate farmers who want to provide a dependable electrical energy source for future generations and imprison us in a category reserved for pariahs and criminals. It is my hope and prayer that the 97% will reconsider the lasting and damaging effects their nefarious campaign is having, not only on the 3%, but on themselves. There is an old saying, those who wallow with pigs will themselves become covered with mud. Is it worth it? Thank you.
Okay, anybody wanna be next?
I can be next.
Okay.
Wow, now we wallow with pigs and we're Nazis. I mean, seriously. So I'm gonna recirculate this list of 31 protective ordinances because number one, I'll give you enough copies here. Mr. Reddick misrepresented it, and the other thing is the only one that has been published on the website is a list of pro-wind ordinances that the Spicer Group provided. This is again a group of 31 ordinances that have not been challenged, that are protective. So I would ask that it be published with the other list and that it be added to the minutes. Mr. Reddick made the comment that the planning commission would pass an ordinance that was more protective than the ones on the list, which wasn't the case at the time, and certainly it doesn't appear to be the case now. I'm sure you're all aware that the PC, with its new board-appointed pro-wind members, is clearly heading down the road of a pro-wind ordinance that will not protect Douglas Township. I would suggest that since the supervisor and Mr. Reddick can no longer legitimately threaten us with the 2017 ordinance that we now know is invalid, they revisit this list of 31 ordinances which have not been challenged. After all, the supervisor has been very clear since the beginning that he does not want this township to be sued. Clearly, the majority of residents want an ordinance that protects Douglas Township. Thanks to Robert Scott, we know that only 3.4% of the tax base has leased, and thanks to Kathy Craig, we know that 74% of the meeting comments have been in favor of a protective wind ordinance, and out of the 19% that were pro-wind, 20% of those were from Apex people. Let's be clear, we believe that we have the support of a large majority of township voters to referendum any new ordinance that does not protect us. So my question is, does the supervisor really want to protect this township, or does he just want a lease for turbines? Here is also a handout which is Kathy Craig's breakdown of how all the comments have gone over the last year. She did a lot of work on that. Thank you.
Anybody want to be next?
Julie Whiteford, 2302 North Muffin, Douglas Township. In reference to the Daily News article that was published earlier today, I'd like to make a few comments to the board. On numerous occasions, comments have been made by various township officials referencing and even threatening the existence and potential use of the previous 2017 wind ordinance, despite it having been identified as an insufficient ordinance by parties on different sides of this debate. This is why we continue to address concerns over this document. Because despite that it may not be currently in place, so to speak, there is a potential for this ordinance to become a relevant issue. Concerned citizens took steps to address this as soon as we became aware of our right and ability to do so. This was an ordinance that was voted on and passed without a large majority of the citizens of Douglas Township being made aware. This is evidenced by the insufficient notice of public hearing, whereas the township itself was not even identified in this notice, as well as the fact that the notice of adoption was never published at all. Ultimately, this deprived the public the right to referendum, an action which would have been taken just as it was with the previous 2020 ordinance in which a successful referendum was completed. What's more is that the ordinance specifically states, quote, "This ordinance shall become effective 7 days after its publication or 7 days after the publication of its provision in a local newspaper of general circulation," an action which was never taken. I understand that several cases have been cited explaining a statute of limitations of sorts. However, these presented cases are factually distinguishable from this case, mainly that in those cases, ordinances were in effect for over 10 years, many permits had been approved, and substantial construction had been in existence for much of that time. On the contrary, in the case of Forest Hill Energy Fowler Farms LLC versus Bengal, Dallas, and Essex Townships, both the Circuit Court as well as the Court of Appeals ruled that ordinances were invalid and unenforceable because process was not followed under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. I also understand that in certain cases, latches may be an issue, where a legal right may not be enforced or allowed if there has been a long delay in asserting a right. However, there are circumstances where latches may be excused, including ignorance of the party's rights, and the obscurity of the transaction, which I would assert in this situation since a notice of public hearing was insufficiently given and a notice of adoption was never published at all, ultimately failing to notify the township residents of its existence. Ultimately, it is our hope that as a township, we are able to adopt a new acceptable ordinance and that the issue of this existence of this 2017 ordinance is a non-issue. But given the current climate surrounding wind energy systems in our community, we have a responsibility to address this concern and took action to do so as soon as we became aware of the issue and our rights and means to correct it. Thank you.
Anybody want to be next? Go ahead, Keith.
I'm Keith Phelps, Douglas Township. On the 26th of January, Ron Reddick and Paul Levant proceed to smoothly present the Douglas Township Energy Coalition ordinance. Both of these men are clueless of the pitfalls and landmines within this coalition ordinance. This ordinance was handed to the PC from an outside source, possibly Josh Nolan. Mr. Reddick had praised this ordinance in the past, claiming 70% was good with 30% not legal. Neither Ron or Paul pointed out anything that would be restrictive or in conflict with the ordinance as they proceeded at the PC on January 26th. If the Planning Commission continues to pursue the Douglas Township Energy Coalition ordinance, the board needs to veto it immediately. Here's a packet of information. Excuse me. Here's a packet of information from independent sources, not Apex, that will give you the insight of what is really going on across the state. And this paper that Sheila handed you will explain that too. The letter to the Douglas residents, which absolutely level lies about wind turbines that defies common sense, such as throwing ice up to a mile. On Saturday, January 29th, the tabloid Daily News spreaded, "Beware of Township corruption." This article was spot on for who is really corrupt. It is the Douglas Township Energy Coalition, the Montcalm Community Citizens United, and their supporting attorneys, plus the Daily News, are the ones that are really corrupt. The Daily News will be printing the anti's response to this meeting no later than Friday or Saturday.
Way to go, buddy.
Anybody want to be next? We got one back here.
Robert Scott, City Township, retired real estate lawyer. I'd like to talk for a couple of minutes about what it means to be fair. Some would define it as being free from injustice. So what does it mean when looking at a zoning ordinance that was never properly adopted? Mr. Reddick has offered up 3 cases where a court was asked to decide what was fair for one of the parties to the lawsuit. In each case, the court held that the ordinance was valid and enforceable in spite of the fact that it was, or possibly was, not properly adopted. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand those cases and agree with the outcomes. In each case, the defective ordinance had been on the books for many years before it was challenged. During that time, one party to the lawsuit, as well as members of the community, had relied on those ordinances and governed their lives accordingly. They had purchased property, borrowed money, made tens of thousands of dollars in improvements to property, all based on the assumption that the ordinances were valid. There were several other factors in those cases the courts relied on to distinguish them from what the circumstances surrounding the 2017 Douglas Wind Ordinance. But in the end, the courts decided that it just wasn't fair for someone to claim that the ordinance was invalid. So how does that apply to the concept of fair? How do we apply the concept of fairness to the clear failure of Douglas Township to properly adopt the 2017 Wind Ordinance? First, none of the alleged defects in those cases were as critical to the adoption of the ordinance as the board's failure to publish the notice of adoption, as required both by the Zoning Enabling Act and by the terms of your own ordinance. But even more importantly, what has anyone done in the past 4 years in reliance on the ordinance? No one has actually built a wind turbine, and no one has even applied for one. Yes, Apex may have put up a Met Tower, but they've done that in other townships, Winfield and Maple Valley, where there are no wind ordinances, so they couldn't have necessarily relied on the 2017 ordinance. Moreover, Apex recognized that their ordinance could be easily amended. In fact, they asked in 2020 that that ordinance be amended and changed to their liking. So, but of course, the 2020 ordinance was rescinded because of the referendum petitions. So is it unfair for this board to admit its failure to properly adopt the 2017 ordinance and rescind it? Absolutely not. In fact, justice requires it, and you could even do that tonight. What is unfair and unjust is for this board to defend and retain, as Mr. Reddick has said, a woefully inadequate ordinance for the sole purpose of retaining its leverage over its residents, over the residents of this township, in order to force a wind ordinance down their throats. As Mr. Reddick has said, if you referendum this draft ordinance, that's what you're gonna get. A wind company that can do just about anything they want in this township. The alternative is much worse. If you referendum it, it will go back to the 2017 ordinance, and Apex will be able to do just about whatever it wants. What you guys have done is violated the law, and you're asking that violation be ignored. Well, it can't be. Where's the justice? Where's the fairness in that? Thank you.
Anybody want to be next? We got one back here.
Yeah, Mike Paulson, Maple Valley. Your last PC meeting, Todd got up and said a thing about Jack and Doug trying to get Todd gone for missing time. I just wanted to, if you had a hand in that too, because that just seems out of character for Doug, but I could be wrong. It looks like you're trying to fit your narrative to get Todd gone because you removed two other people that were not, I'm not gonna say anti-wind. These people were just for the health, safety, and welfare of their township. That's what we are. And I'd like to challenge the lady here, talks about Hitler, to come to the Wildflower School Saturday for a wind rally. It'd be a different look or a different perspective of what she's seeing here. She'd be willing to do that, or anybody else either. Thank you.
Anybody want to be next? If we don't have any more comments, we're gonna adjourn.
I have one comment. Why do all these pro-wind people keep bringing up Hitler? Don't make sense. I mean, you're a dictator, so maybe you're a Hitler. I don't know. These guys keep bringing up Hitler. I don't understand it. Anyways, that's it.
You wanna be next? Yep.
Linda Reynolds, I would ask that maybe in the future, when you guys are going through your agenda, there's the treasurer's report and the amount of bills that's being paid and what have you. I go to quite a few meetings for the past year, and Phyllis will read through all of theirs for Winfield. She says what bills are being paid, the dollar amount, blah, blah, blah. Todd Lincoln at Cato will do the same thing. He'll say check number 323 is forecasted for the amount of whatever. We brought in this much for taxes or whatever for the total of. We don't see any of that, and as long as you're going through it, Rhonda or whatever, she could print it off like they do at Maple Valley, right on the back side of the agenda.
There's a treasurer's report laying right over there.
And it
That's
has it
for
broke
last
down.
month. Well,
Does
that's
it
for
break
last
down
month.
like what you're paying for, the electric
Each
and the
bill.
gas and all that kind of thing?
I can make more copies. I'm not against making copies.
Okay.
I just don't wanna make a whole bunch of copies and then have to throw them away. At the last meeting, we threw them away, okay? I have more copies, I have my copy, I'll gladly give it to you.
It'd be nice to know when you guys are, approving things, we have
That's
no
fine.
idea what it is even
Do
about.
you have
when-
the bills over there this month?
No, because I threw away so many last month. I
We
wasn't
can
gonna.
give them to you after the meeting if you can, I can make copies.
Can we post these on the agenda for like last month? Cause we pulled them right off the daily, the page, the treasurer's report. Thank you.
Anybody wanna be next?
Thank you, Amy.
Melissa Bannon, Douglas Township. I'm curious, did you guys know 2017 didn't exist, or that you messed it up and that it wasn't legal?
Didn't have a clue.
Okay, because I feel offended by you up there yelling at us that if we referendum this, it's gonna go back to 2017.
If you wanna give me a chance for a second, I felt a little silly because Elizabeth at the newspaper knew about it way before I did. She texted me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we hadn't even seen it yet. So, it's news to us, and I apologize for that.
Okay, I just felt very offended that you stood up there and yelled at us, that, if we
I felt a
referendum
little
anything.
silly about it myself, cause,
Okay,
anybody wanna be next?
Wait, was Melissa done?
I wasn't
Oh,
done,
I'm
but
sorry.
just
Go
was
ahead.
curious.
Go ahead.
So, when a unsafe ordinance goes through this time, we by all rights have a right to referendum it without being yelled at that it's gonna go back to 2017, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Christy Williams, Douglas Township, I live on Cleese and Musson, sorry, you guys haven't given my address, 1990 West Cleese Road. Comment about Douglas Township being totally Douglas Township Energy Coalition, I am on that board. And for the comment made that we are totally against windmills, we are not. If I could put a 150-foot windmill in the back of my yard right now to supply all of my property with electricity, I wouldn't have a single problem with it at all. But I don't want to look, and my health, to have a 500-foot blinking wind turbine in my backyard. That's all I'm fighting for. We are not against green energy, and whoever says that is totally wrong. That is not why we started Douglas Township Energy Coalition. We are all for green energy. We are for the health of this township. Not everybody here is for the health of this township. But that's why we personally started Douglas Township Energy Coalition. Thank you.
Anybody wanna be next? Ben?
Ben Reynolds, Stanton. In regards to the 2017 ordinance, it wasn't just a little boo-boo or just a typo. There were several infractions on that were totally out of line. And Mr. Reddick just kind of blew it off as like, well, enough time has gone by, no courts will look at it. So I guess I would like to confer with Mr. Reddick sometime, like, how long does it take for a lie to become truth? How long does it take wrong to become right if nobody contests it? Year, 2 years, 4 years? Wrong is wrong. We all know that was a junk ordinance, and it really should be just totally repealed and wiped off the books. And I don't think a nickel should be spent on legal fees by the township fighting to keep that ordinance on the books. It should just go away. Thank you.
Any more comments? If we don't have any more, we got one over here. There's a lady over here that had her hand up earlier.
Thank you. Kay Scott, Sydney Township, we're on Nevins Lake. We are closer to the closest leased property, closer than most of the people who live in this township. It will affect us. Nobody's gonna wanna buy a piece of property with wind turbines that close. And for my own health issues, I probably won't be able to use the cottage if these go in. I know I speak for a lot of people in Montcalm County. What I'd like to say is that when the 2020 ordinance was rescinded, it was no skin off Apex's nose because there were only a few changes for them that accommodated their wishes. They knew that there would be a new ordinance. In fact, it was really in their favor because when 2020 went away, the threat of 2017 stayed. And it has meant, I'm not judging anybody's intent opportunity for this board to do the right thing. I'm not hearing the right thing from your lawyer. What my husband read was quoting him directly. This is your opportunity right now to do the right thing. I'm asking you, are you willing to rescind 2017 tonight by a voice vote? And if not, why not?
Are you done?
I'm done.
Anybody else got any comments?
Can't answer the question.
That's our answer.
Thank you, Katie.
Go ahead.
Sarah Kelly, Douglas Township, just lived down the road here. I'm gonna reiterate what Kay said about the voice vote. If not, I think most everybody here would like an explanation as to why not. And also, Laura, and anybody else, I really don't like hearing about Hitler. We all know about Hitler. We've all had history lessons over and over again. Some of us were history minors in school. It's not productive, whether you're for wind turbines or not. Nobody wants to hear about Hitler. And I please ask you not to keep bringing Hitler up, because I may or may not want wind, but I'm not proud of Hitler, and I don't think anybody's proud of Hitler. And also, you wonder why people call you money grubbers. Maybe not you personally, or if you've heard that, I don't know who's called you a money grubber. But then donate your little quarter acre of land that each turbine would sit on, and any money that would come, and have it go straight to the county. That's all.
Anybody else got anything? If not.
Ken Purchase from Belvedere Township, just right next door to you guys. I'll tell you what, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Thank you.
If I don't have any more, we're gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mine is not so much on the wind issue, but I would just like to reiterate what Sarah said. I'm reading a memoir right now of one woman's experience in the concentration camps, and it's an amazing book. And I think any reference at this level and the things that have happened between the landowners and the people that are for safe setbacks is ludicrous. There is absolutely no comparison. The first time I ever heard that was at a Douglas Township, Sydney Township meeting in the park, when Ned Welder brought it up and compared the safe setback people moving in the same kind of way that Hitler did, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and I think anybody should know that, especially someone with the experience that Laura Ingalls has. And the whole thing about us not respecting farmers is totally untrue. First of all, there are many farmers that aren't taking advantage of this. I have family in Reynolds Township that is not taking advantage of this, and they have many, many acres. We don't think that about you. We appreciate the farming that you have done. But appreciating that does not make us, we don't appreciate it to the extent that we want 500 to 800 foot turbines peppering. Our country is gonna end up looking like our country, not just our township, like one big COVID virus, with all these huge things poking up. And the way they look is enough, but it's not just the way they look. There are problems. If you get far enough away, if you put them in places where you can have them a mile or 2 miles away from people, then perhaps they work. But in a rural residential, we are too tightly populated for these things. And honestly, the Apex company does not care about us, which everybody will find out very soon when they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. They're political operatives. They use political techniques to come in and sell something to people before any of the township, our township, I'm Montcalm Township, by the way, any of the townships know about it. They come in and, they're sneaky. They come in and they do their thing, and then the townships find out. I don't blame anybody. I hate to even say that you're duped, because I know you're smart people, but they're smooth, People sell us things all the time. People sell us things and we go, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why did I buy that? Because there's some smooth talker that is giving you a line that's not true. And, that's all. But
What's your name?
Oh, Pam Hemmis, Montcalm Township.
Anybody else? Eric?
Yeah, Eric Tester. You know, Ron said how bad the 2017 ordinance is. And he's a lawyer that works for the big corporations. Why do we still have this 5 years later? It doesn't make, when even Ron thinks it's a bad ordinance, why do we keep sitting on it? I don't understand what the reasoning is there. I mean, that should have been removed a long time ago and got a good ordinance, and I just don't understand why we're hanging on to it. And I mentioned at the planning meeting, you know, they're gonna put turbines 600 foot from our flat river, 1,000 foot away. Think of that. Between here and that bridge, we let them put turbines that close. Unless we're planning on killing the waterfowl, why would we ever do this? I mean, you know this is gonna get reprimanded. I don't even know if the DNR would allow them that close to a river, but I just don't understand the thinking on what our board did the other night, because, you know, we have to protect this area. We're here to preserve and protect. I don't care what farmers make off their land, I'd rather see them put solar, but I mean, if our generation doesn't protect this, who does? You put turbines all around this flat river, it was designated for a reason. You might as well put them in the middle of the river. I don't understand why they wanted them so close to our river. That's, I mean, if you could ask them, I just don't understand it. Thank you, Terry.
Anybody else? I don't see any hands. Motion to adjourn.
Support.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.